Welcome to the Rant Timeshare, where I rant about anything that my $5 a month plus patrons ask me to rant about. Today's rant is for Trey, which says, talk about who the best overall MMA fighter of 2023 is and why. Also, who is the most overrated. Thanks, bye. So this is a pretty multifaceted question because I think there's multiple ways you can view best fighter. So I'm gonna pull up the UFC rankings here. Oh, misspelled it. Okay, so I have the UFC rankings pulled up here, and I think it'd be best to go by weight class as opposed to start off by going by weight class and then give sort of my overall picks, because it's a very difficult conversation to have, like who is the best, especially with the best being so vague. I mean, it's Volkanovski, but whatever. We'll go over why. So at flyweight, this is the only one where I have to venture outside of the UFC, because the flyweight of the year is easily Demetrius Johnson, who fights over at 1FC. And I don't think this is a hot take, absolutely whatsoever. UFC champion Alessandro Pantoja is one of my very, very, very favorite fighters. I love his style. I love watching his fights. But, I mean, you're lying if you don't think that Demetrius Johnson is the flyweight of this year. He had a, fairy tale ending to his, incredibly illustrious career. He's probably one of the top 3 MMA fighters of all time. He's incredible. He's probably the most skilled fighter that I've ever seen. And he retired with a convincing, dominant second win over his rival Adriano Moraes. And, I mean, there's just nothing more this guy could have done with his career. He had all the fights in the UFC. He had all the defenses. And then he went over to one championship. He had the mixed rule set fight with Rod Tang, won that. And now he's beaten his rival Adriano Moraes twice in a row, both in convincing fashion. And then he sort of rides off into the sunset. It's amazing. He's a nice guy. You should check out his YouTube channel if you haven't. He's such a wholesome fellow. He's like kind of like Robert Whitaker, who I'll talk about later. But yeah, so for flyweight, got to be Demetrius Johnson, Mighty Mouse. For bantamweight, obviously Sterling's the champ, so he had a win over Henry Cejudo, which was the most impressive win on paper. But I feel like if you're going to go for performance of the year, you have to give it to Merab Dvalishvili, or Merab Dvalishvili. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but this dude, at a time when people still thought Peter Yan here was the not rightful champion, but people still thought Peter Yan was clearly the best fighter in the world at this time. And Dvalishvili comes in here and he 5-0s him, totally shuts him down for the entire fight, shows unprecedented cardio. Nobody's ever seen a guy push that kind of a pace for that long, and just absolutely blows everybody's minds. And then he says, you know what, I'm not going to fight Aljo because he's my friend, which is kind of awesome, actually. He gets a lot of hate from the MMA guru sphere, which, I mean, I don't know anything about. My name's a total coincidence, but I really like I like Merab. He's cool, and I like his style a lot. It's a little ugly. It's a bit heavy on his athleticism. It's a bit more heavily weighted on his athleticism, I guess, than certain other styles that may seem more cerebral or interesting or smart to call your favorite. But I really just like Merab Dvalishvili's avalanche style, where he just keeps coming at you constantly. It's like Colby Covington, but better, pretty much. And then at featherweight, very simple, Alexander Volkanovski. The best performance I've personally ever seen in, I believe it was February, against Islam Makhachev. And he did lose that fight. A lot of people, including myself, think he probably should have won 3-2, but, what are you going to do? Definitely not a robbery. Islam had an amazing performance too, but Volkanovski's performance as the smaller man was just absolutely unbelievable. But I feel weird calling him, the best fighter of 2023 because he only has a loss. But recently, he came off that highlight reel KO win, TKO win over Yair Rodriguez. And Yair Rodriguez was a really, really dangerous opponent at the time. Everyone was saying it. Volkanovski won both the first 2 rounds convincingly and then finished him in the third. And you could make the argument that aside from the Islam fight, if we're just talking at featherweight, Volkanovski hasn't lost a single round in years. Like, you can make the argument because if you look at his last fight against Yair, he won the first 2 rounds, finished him in the third, of course. And then if we go to his page here and go to his recent fights. So he finishes Yair in the third, wins 1 and 2. He 5-0s Max Holloway in the 3-match. He 3-0s Chang Sung-jung, and then he finishes him in the fourth. And then against Ortega, it's a little bit more up in the air, especially with that, oh my God, was it the third or the fourth round? I believe that third round that was like, legendary, where he gets caught in like 2 incredibly deep submissions in a row, but then he gets out and he ends the round on top doing ground and pound. I could see how you could give that to Ortega. I'd probably give that round to Ortega, even though he ended in a worse position and he probably got out damaged that round just because of how close he was to finishing the fight. But actually, I don't know. It's tough. But also the 5th round, Volk wasn't necessarily going as hard as he possibly could have, and that round was pretty tit for tat. But if you give those rounds to Volk, you can make the argument that he hasn't lost in 3 years, or he hasn't lost a single round at featherweight in 3 years since he fought Holloway the second time, which obviously he did lose a couple of rounds in that one, as did he in the first fight with him. But I mean, other than that, I don't think he lost a round against Aldo. He finished Mendez in the second round. The first round was a little, I don't know. I guess that would be where it ends. But I never saw his fight against Elkins or Kennedy But crazy stuff. At featherweight, he is absolutely the man. He is, if it's not Demetrius Johnson, he's probably the most skilled fighter I've ever seen. It's crazy. I don't know. I wasn't really around during George St. Pierre's heyday. I know a lot of people would mention him. John Jones is just, he's just such a, I'll talk about him later, but he's just such a giant. I mean, he fights at light heavyweight and now heavyweight. It's tough to call him like the most skilled relative to his competition. He definitely has an argument for, but it's just like, I feel like when you look at John Jones' technique and then you look at Demetrius Johnson's technique, there's like, there's a clear discrepancy there. And that's not a knock on John Jones or anything. That's just sort of the nature of the sport with weight classes. So it doesn't even necessarily make Demetrius Johnson per se a better fighter than John Jones. I mean, I think maybe, but more skilled, absolutely, definitely. And then at lightweight, Charles Oliveira got a big win, of course, over Beneil Dariush. Justin Gaethje got a really big upset win over Rafael Fiziev. I'm pretty sure Gamrot has 2 wins this year. Let's see. Turner, no. Yeah, I guess the big wins that I can think of are, of course, Makhachev's performance against Alexander Volkanovski, where even though people were expecting him to steamroll Volkanovski, I think it's more of a testament to how good Volkanovski is than like that Islam was slacking, because of the fact that we all know Islam is like a legendary wrestler. He's got that pedigree, and he's he out wrestled and out grappled Charles Oliveira, finished him in the second. So it's like, or in the third. God, I know nothing about MMA. I'm losing my mind here. In the second, but everybody knows that his striking against Volkanovski, who's like he's like, I know, like definitely top 3 strikers in the UFC right now, with incredible speed from a lower weight class, so he's always faster. Islam was looking really dangerous on the feet there. Islam was doing amazing striking against Volkanovski. So just to imagine how good he is at wrestling in tandem with that, and how he doesn't really, in most matchups, have to fear the takedown, and how he can just really strike to his full potential very commonly. It's really scary, man. I think Islam had a legitimately great performance against Volk. I mean, there was that takedown in the 4th round that like was the fastest thing I've ever seen, where he was standing up at one point and then he had his arms around Volk's legs, and he got him down, and then he held him there for a long time, but Volkanovski was punching him in the face because Volkanovski's the best. You know how it goes. But it was seriously a really good performance. It only made Islam Makhachev scarier to me because seeing Volk mess with him in the wrestling and like be competitive and take him down and all that, I don't see Oliveira doing that. He doesn't have like the best offensive wrestling, and Islam Makhachev is so defensively sound that I feel like he could shut that down for sure. But it's like, in the matchups that matter, like against Charles Oliveira, who's a bit of a wild man on the feet, he's highly technical and all that, but he's like a pressure fighter through and through. He keeps on the gas and he just goes for it. Very offensively minded striker. I think Islam, I don't see Charles winning that fight. Obviously, you can't count Charles out of any fight. He's like the best finisher in UFC history. But outside of a finish, I can't imagine Charles beating Makhachev because it's not a good style matchup for him. And I see Makhachev reigning for a long time. I think if he rematches Volkanovski has a really good shot at getting the win, probably more than a 50% shot at getting the win. But obviously, he's still in that fight. He's in any fight. I think he'd beat Leon Edwards, honestly. I think if Colby Covington becomes champ, he'd beat Colby for sure. I'm not going to say that. But I think Volkanovski would have a decent shot against Colby. This is a pipe dream, but if Volkanovski beat Makhachev and then moved up and beat Colby and became the 3-division world champ, which would be like, I like his odds in both those matchups. They're both very, very, very difficult matchups for him. But like, that is possible. Those are two possible matchups against two champions in higher weight classes, and it's just like, in this most modern era, at lightweight, welterweight, and featherweight, that would just be insanely impressive if he were to be able to do that. But that's just because Volkanovski's like my favorite fighter, so I'm just fantasizing about like him having the perfect career or something. It's not gonna happen. Colby Covington would probably beat him because he's just, I don't know, but that's just what I'm thinking. At welterweight, Leon Edwards. Easily Leon Edwards. I mean, he had the knockout of the year last year against the, at the time, pound for pound number 1 ranked Kamaru Usman. In the 5th round, in a fight he was getting the shit beat out of him at elevation. So this is like as fatigued and like down as you can possibly be, and he still pulled the finish out after having a really impressive round 1. But then everyone was talking about like, it was a fluky shot. Usman was coasting and he just let off the gas a little bit too much, and Leon was in the right place at the right time. But then the rematch comes in. Leon freaking cheats the whole time. So he gets a point deduction, but he still wins by decision. Which is very impressive considering that he lost a point for, I believe it was cage grabbing. It's incredibly impressive stuff. And I like his chances. I think he beats Colby. I definitely think he beats Colby. It's a tough matchup, but I probably favor him like 55-45 in that one. It's just he's like Usman. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that weird fitness YouTuber who always talks about like how aesthetic Leon Edwards' physique is and how that gives him like a massive advantage within the weight class system because he just has muscle in all of the most effective places. But it's true. He almost made Usman look small. He looked bigger than Usman to me. And Covington, I don't know if I trust him against somebody that big, that strong, with the cardio to go 5 rounds and still be dangerous in the 5th. It just seems pretty rough. And on the feet, I feel like you need power to deter Leon from doing his thing. And I feel like Leon would definitely hurt Colby on the feet. At the same time, I don't know. It's definitely a compelling fight. Because on the ground, Covington's scrambles are just like crazy. He has a great scrambling ability, so it would definitely be a competitive fight. But I would have to favor Leon for sure. Leon's a younger guy as well. I would just have to go for it. He's got the momentum. Covington might have some ring rust. That's what I'm thinking. But best performance of the year at welterweight easily goes to Leon Edwards. Middleweight, knockout of the year, Israel Adesanya over Poatan. I don't know why. Can I see the knockout on here? No, I absolutely cannot. But knocked out his greatest rival. He knocked him out in spectacular fashion. It was like this whole big thing. But performance of the year, the best fighter of the year, absolutely. Adesanya has knockout of the year. That was crazy. I'm a major Poatan fan. That was like, seeing him like laid out unconscious was literally like tragic to me. Like I don't know that I've ever been that strongly emotionally influenced by watching something. Like, I was devastated that night, but absolutely the most astonishing knockout of the year so far. Yeah, definitely the most astonishing knockout of the year so far. But middleweight of the year might have to go to DDP because he has 2 wins. Granted, his first win was against the geriatric corpse of Derek Brunson. But, I mean, you know, that was a fight that a lot of people were picking against him in. I was picking for him. And, you know, he definitely had the youth and athleticism on his side. He looked ugly in that fight. He lost a lot of exchanges to old man Brunson. And that was kind of tough to see. But, man, Brunson just... when you hit him hard enough, he just gives up. I think, at least now he does. I don't know why he's still ranked. He's, like, definitely retired. But when you hit him hard enough, I saw it with Jared Cannonier in that fight, too. Just now, he just... for lack of a better term, he doesn't have the dog in him, you know? Like, and so DDP was just, you know, he chases the finish. He was more, he out-hustled him, he outworked him, and then he landed the better shots, and eventually he got the finish over Brunson after getting a submission finish over Darren Till the fight before. So it's confusing because I was hearing people say that DDP was the least skilled ranked middleweight, even when he was ranked in the top 5. Which is very interesting, but, you know, I somewhat understood that take. I definitely didn't agree with it, but he fought Darren Till, and Darren Till's a massive question mark. He hasn't won a fight. He hasn't won an important fight in who knows how long, and now he's retired. So it's like, you know, you got to take that win with a really massive, like, helping of salt. But then he beat Brunson, and it's the same thing. Brunson's an old fart. He's past his prime. You know, he doesn't have that same drive to win that he used to, and you know, he's just not that good. But then DDP fixes his nose, I guess, and then beats the crap out of Robert Whittaker, which is just as impressive of a win to me as beating Adesanya. I think Whittaker is absolutely on that same exact level as Adesanya. I think styles make fights, and Adesanya beat him both times. I mean, that second fight was like really, really, really close, but I think Whittaker is absolutely on the same level. Him and Adesanya are on a very similar level. And the fact that DDP came in there and just beat the crap out of him in round 1, finished him in the second, is crazy. Now, I don't know if something was up with Robert Whittaker. He's too, like, consummate a professional and, like, nice of a guy to, like, honest a competitor to give any excuses, but I don't know. It seems like he got Robert Whittaker. Maybe Robert Whittaker slightly wasn't taking him as seriously as he possibly could because so many people were counting DDP out. But, I mean, oh my God. Oh my God. All right, guys, sorry for the cut, but I just realized this video is already close to 20 minutes long. But yeah, the point is, he beat one of the best fighters in the world dominantly. He won round 1, he won round 2, and he has a second finish win under his belt within 2023, and most people only have one fight. So I feel like I got to give it to DDP. He really went from 0 to hero. Before he had fought Brunson, compared to where he is now, I mean, oh my, it's absolutely crazy, but you also can't deny Izzy's knockout was just crazy, absolutely insane. It was, I wish I didn't like Poatan so much so I could appreciate that knockout more. But at light heavyweight, Jamal Hill had a spectacular performance. Now he's injured. It's hard to call him the best because he's, I don't know, Prohaska's injured too. Ankalaev hasn't fought this year. He fought in December against Jan. Jan hasn't fought until tomorrow. Rakic, God, who is the light heavyweight of the year? Is it Johnny Walker? I refuse to say it's Johnny Walker. It's probably Johnny Walker because he has 2 finish wins this year, doesn't he? He beat. Oh wait, no, he didn't. He didn't finish. He should have, but he didn't finish Anthony Smith. Wow, yeah, but I think you might have to give it to Johnny Walker, and this is probably the least impressive best fighter. of the weight class, and I'm just not going to talk about him too much, but he had a knockout win over Paul Craig or whatever, and then he beat Anthony Smith. It's like, those aren't exactly like two world beaters, but you know, it's like heavyweight. It's just such a mess right now. Like, Jan didn't win his last fight because it was a draw. Neither did Magomed. He's injured for a long ass time. Jamal Hill's injured now, so it's just like this whole top. Glover retired. Rakic has been injured for a really long time. Krylov beat freaking Ryan Spann. That's just not that impressive, and he only has one win this year, I believe. You know, Volkan Ozdemir is just not a top contender. It's just, light heavyweight is a bit disgraceful right now. Hopefully Poaton's going to come in there and bring some structure to it. I'm really excited for tomorrow, which is going to be Pereira versus Blachowicz. Heavyweight, John Jones has performance of the year at heavyweight. Pavlovich had a great performance. Aspinall had a great performance, but John Jones just simply did it against the best guy. I think he's very cut and dry. Yeah, that's what I would say. I'm going to quickly go over, I guess, who's overrated in each division, and then I'll just round it out by giving like my overall pick. Overrated at flyweight. Man, it's kind of hard to say. I really honestly, like, I'm being transparent here. I don't know that much about like the deeper rankings of even the top 15 of flyweight, but when it comes to people in the top 5, I mean, Figueiredo seems, he looked slow. He looked pretty slow in his last fight. I don't think he really has it in him, especially at his age now, to be a top 3 contender at flyweight. I mean, it's very possible that he does, but I think if they fought, you know, every 6 months from now until the end of time, Brandon Moreno might win all of them. Amir Albazi, nobody thinks he's definitely not overrated because he won by what people are saying is a robbery, so people are really low on him, but I don't think I have an overrated fighter for flyweight because Davidson Figueiredo earned his stripes for sure. At bantamweight, overrated. Probably it was Marlon Vera until he fought Corey Sandhagen. People were way too high on Marlon Vera, and I just don't know why, because he was just losing fights and then winning. It's just not a consistent fighting style, and I was very confident that Corey Sandhagen was going to win that fight, but I think he's the only person that I would say was, and now he's probably pretty appropriately rated. I think Peter Yan's going to beat the shit out of him, to be honest, or beat the crap out of him. I don't know. Shouldn't have said the S word. That's a big no-no, but either way, at featherweight, overrated. I don't know if this is a hot take. I don't think it's a hot take, but Brian Ortega has not beat anybody impressive in so long. Like, I think his last prominent win was... What was it? It wasn't Zombie. He had to... Who did he beat since Zombie? Nobody. Okay. Well, he beat Korean Zombie 3 years ago, so that's his last major win. He's ranked 3 at featherweight. Definitely overrated. Definitely overrated. At lightweight, overrated. Dos Anjos. I don't know if... I mean, it's tough, man. Dos Anjos kind of does belong there, though. I mean, this is... I guess Gamrot a little bit. Just a little bit. Like, I know he's I think he arguably lost to Jalen Turner. I gave that fight to Jalen Turner, and Jalen Turner just lost to Dan Hooker. I know it's MMA math, but I feel like if there's somebody that's overrated in this division, definitely got to be Mateusz Gamrot. Because he's coming off... He lost to... who did he lose to? He lost to Benil. And then... And in that fight, he was coming off of not a robbery win, but a fight he shouldn't have won over Tsarukian. So he probably shouldn't have won that fight versus... why did I click on Benil Dariush? He probably shouldn't have won that fight versus Tsarukian. And before that, his biggest win was over... oh god, I always forget his name, but something for the guy who just knocked out Michael Johnson. Carlos Diego Ferreira, I think. I mean, it's not a lot of great wins here. He didn't, like, you see these names, it's like, okay. And then you see Saryuki, and you're like, okay, damn. But he didn't really win that fight. And then he lost a fight, and then he arguably lost a fight again. I mean, I just don't think he's at the top of this division. I really don't. So I think he's overrated. At welterweight, it's so messed up. But like, I don't think Bilal Muhammad is that good. I think he beat a one-armed Gilbert Burns, and he didn't finish him. And that's all I have to say about that. That's really all I have to say about that. At middleweight, I mean, Pereira's definitely not the second best middleweight. I'm a major Pereira fan, and he's not the second best middleweight, not by a long shot. Well, okay, not by a long shot, but he's better than Marvin Vettori. But like, he's probably like around. He's probably like after Whitaker for sure. Other than that, Derek Brunson needs to be removed from this list. He is retired, and he's going senile. Jamal Hill, light heavyweight. I'm not saying Jamal Hill's overrated. He's absolutely not overrated. Overrated. Nobody's really... There's no illustrious figures at light heavyweight. There's nobody that people are really all that high on. I mean, Ankalaev, I've never really heard of Ankalaev fans. I mean, I know they're out there, but I've never heard them like just talking about, oh man, Ankalaev, such a beast. He's so sick. Oh man, he's finishing everybody at light heavyweight. He is just absolutely the best. I mean, it's Magomed Ankalaev. He's a monster, but I don't know. It's just he doesn't have that it factor, I guess. Jan Blachowicz is 40. Prohaska's injured. Jamal Hill is injured. Everybody else here. This is the worst division in the UFC right now. It's worse than heavyweight. The worst men's division, I guess. This... Ugh. I don't even want to talk about it. This is just... I'm looking at these rankings, and this is disgraceful. Khalil Roundtree above Dustin Jacoby, even though he should have lost that fight. Yeah, it's just... That's frustrating. And then a heavyweight, overrated... Jilton Almeida's 9? Really? Thought it'd be a little higher. Or a little lower, rather. Like, a little better. Marcin Tabora. Derek Lewis is about to lose to an unranked man. Alexander Romanov. I mean, Alexander Romanov. No, I mean, it's just... Everybody's just okay. Miocic should not be ranked number 3. He's a 41-year-old man. He's nothing but question marks at this point. And do you really think he'd be favored over Curtis Blades? Or Tom Aspinall? Do you really think Stipe would be favored over Tom Aspinall? He shouldn't be. No. Stipe needs to be lower down the rankings, but he's going to fight Jones, and Jones is going to get another win that nobody gives him any credit for. So that's whatever. Overall, most overrated fighter, probably... probably Brian Ortega. I'm going to be real. It's probably Brian Ortega. Pretty much, I already gave an explanation. Best fighter. Oh, big surprise. I think it's Volkanovski. I think it's definitely Volkanovski. And, yeah, that's pretty much everything. Tomorrow, Gaethje's going to have his second fight of the year. I think if Gaethje gets another big upset win, he'll have one over Fiziev, and he'll have one over Poirier. Those are two incredible wins. That will put him... Not at best because he's not a champion, but that would put him in the running for Fighter of the Year. Because at this point in the year, just most people have only had one fight, especially most champions. I mean, I don't think there's a single champion besides Volk that have had 2 fights this year. Yeah. No, not a single one. Not a single one. So, in that respect, I guess you gotta clap it up for Volk. But if not Volk, call it recency bias. As a contender, I gotta give it to DDP. I mean, his value has gone up more than any other fighters this year. So I got to give it to DDP. But, yeah, I mean, I suppose that's pretty much it for the best fighter of 2023. Shout out to Demetrius Johnson, of course. He's amazing. But I feel like that's what I would have to say. And tomorrow isn't particularly relevant to that conversation. Nobody on tomorrow's card is really in the running. I was thinking about delaying making this video until after UFC 291, but it's like, or UFC 290, What is it? Dude, I'm not a UFC fan. There's no way I don't know this. I get on the mic and I start second guessing everything. Yeah, UFC 291. I don't know why I second guessed that. But I want to win, but I'm like, who's going to win? Is freaking Tony Ferguson going to get a big win? And I'm going to say he's fighter of the year? No. Maybe. No, but that's all I have to say about that. I love Alexandre Pantoja. I love Volkanovski. I like Islam a lot. I like Edwards a lot. I like Pereira a lot. And that's most of the fighters that I really like. I like Rachmanov a lot. I mean, other than that, I like Bobby Green a lot. I'm trying to think of if there's anyone else I'm missing. Like fighters that I really like. I admire Prohaska and Jamal Hill for their decision to not hold the division up. So I definitely admire them heavily. Cannonier's last fight was really good, but yeah, I would say that's about everything I have to say on this topic. I probably just talked for like half an hour, but yeah, have a good day, guys.